In a distant, opulent land stood a magnificent, sprawling castle which sadly belonged to a young, handsome, immensely wealthy, but incredibly arrogant and supremely selfish prince who only valued his own extravagant pleasure. On extremely cold, unforgiving winter night, a seemingly frail, shivering beggar woman arrived at the grand castle door and politely requested temporary shelter in exchange for a single, perfect, deep red rose. Arrogant, haughty prince scornfully laughed out loud at her humble offering and coldly, cruelly turned the impoverished old woman away from the warm comfort of his lavish, brightly lit home. Showing absolutely no kindness or human hospitality, beggar woman immediately warned the prince not to be carelessly fooled by mere superficial outward appearances, asserting that true beauty must always be found deep within the soul. But the shallow prince simply dismissed her words with contemptuous disdain and arrogance. Suddenly, the seemingly weak beggar woman transformed in an instant into a powerful, magnificent enchantress whose intense, righteous presence filled the entire huge ballroom with a blinding, terrifying light and shimmering magic. Severely punished the spoiled prince for his immense cruelty, his unbearable self-absorption, and his total lack of love or empathy. The powerful enchantress transformed him into a grotesque, fearsome, and utterly miserable beast, covered in thick fur and bearing huge, menacing horns. Also magically and immediately transformed all the castle's loyal and innocent servants into various bewildered enchanted household objects, such as upright clocks, talking teapots, and charming candlesticks. The enchantress solemnly warned the now miserable beast that he had to successfully find true, pure, selfless love for another person, and that person must genuinely, truly love him back, before the last final petal fell from the magical, enchanted rose. Meanwhile, in a lively, nearby quaint French village surrounded by lush fields, lived a beautiful, intelligent, and fiercely independent young woman named Belle, who loved to spend her days reading classic adventure books. Belle lived a simple but profoundly fulfilling life with her eccentric, white-haired, and endlessly devoted father, Maurice, who was a passionate but often ridiculously ridiculed local inventor. On an unfortunate, blustery, and windswept day, Maurice departed on a vital trading journey to the market but quickly became terribly lost, confused, and dangerously disoriented during a sudden, violent, thick snowstorm deep in the surrounding forest. Desperately searching for any dry, safe refuge and sanctuary from the relentless, freezing storm and the hungry wolves, the frightened inventor stumbled upon the eerie, immense, and magically quiet castle lurking nearby. The huge, angry, and territorial beast immediately discovered the frightened, soaked Maurice trespassing inside his private courtyard and furiously locked the frail, elderly man in a cold, dark, stone prison cell in the isolated dungeon. Belle, noticing her father's unusual and prolonged absence, bravely traced his frantic horse's path to the remote, foreboding fortress. Determined to confront the dangerous owner and rescue her loved one, Belle rushed fearlessly inside the giant, shadowy castle and bravely demanded her elderly father's immediate and unconditional release, refusing to leave the premises until he was safely freed from captivity. Monstrous beast presented a cruel, inescapable ultimatum: he would free Maurice, but only if Belle agreed to become his permanent, unwilling prisoner in the cold, silent castle. Replacing her father completely. Courageous Belle selflessly accepted the terrifying offer, making the ultimate sacrifice of her cherished freedom to save her beloved father from the beast's stark, suffocating dungeon and his terrible rage. Heartbroken Maurice was reluctantly sent home in a magical, quick carriage, utterly devastated, racked with overwhelming guilt, and consumed with tears at leaving his cherished, brave daughter with the fearful creature. Belle soon met the beast's wonderfully quirky, often fretting, and magically delightful enchanted servants, who immediately tried their absolute best to gently comfort the distraught young woman with kindness and soft servants, including the overbearing Cogsworth the clock and the flamboyant Lumi Ray the candlestick. secretly held onto hope that Belle might be the key to finally breaking their terrible, painful enchantment. The lonely, tormented beast kept the one magical, perpetually glowing, deep crimson rose under a decorative, protective glass bell jar in the most inaccessible, deeply shadowed corner of his large private window. Every single day, the beautiful but magically delicate rose slowly, visibly began to tragically lose its vibrant, precious petals, each one symbolically reminding the beast of the critical, rapidly dwindling time remaining for him. The enchanted rose was indeed a critical, life-defining timer. The cursed beast knew he absolutely had to sincerely find, successfully earn, and truly reciprocate true, genuine love before the last, final withered petal sadly descended to the dusty stone floor. At the very beginning, the beast was harsh, demanding, and constantly ill-tempered, and Belle found him absolutely unbearable, incredibly rude, and entirely frustrating, often refusing to meekly follow his strict rules. But slowly, over shared evening dinners, tentative conversations, and moments of shared quiet, the compassionate Belle began to see small glimpses of the lonely, sad, and fundamentally good heart buried deep beneath the beast's terrifying exterior. The beast, in turn, began to learn patience, tenderness, and genuine kindness from Belle, allowing her full, unrestricted access to his vast, magnificent, and sprawling private library, which delighted her beyond all measure. They began spending countless hours together, discussing poetry, reading classic literature, playing intellectual games, and quietly feeding the wild birds outside the great hall window. Their relationship deepened profoundly and irreversibly during a scary, unexpected wolf attack in the snowy woods, where the beast heroically risked his own life to fiercely protect Belle. Though he was severely wounded in the process, Belle tenderly, carefully cared for the beast's painful, deep wounds in the West Wing. Their emotional connection grew much stronger, and they realized that they shared a powerful, genuine, and surprisingly mutual affection and respect. The beast, completely and genuinely in love and determined to show profound trust, allowed Belle to temporarily leave the castle and return to her village to visit and reassure her sick, worried father. Belle returned to her village and found her father quite ill, and the paranoid villagers, fiercely led by the jealous, vengeful Gaston, determined to lock Maurice away, wrongly believing he was completely insane. Gaston, the handsome but arrogant, mean-spirited hunter who obsessively wanted to forcibly marry Belle, led a massive, angry mob back to the ominous castle to savagely destroy the feared beast. Belle rushed frantically back to the immense castle, finding the wounded beast desperately trying to defend his home and his own life against the vicious onslaught of the massive, pitchfork-wielding mob. Fierce, terrifying, and brutal battle immediately erupted on the high, treacherous, slippery rooftop of the magnificent castle between the powerful beast and the vengeful, hateful Gaston. The noble beast fought valiantly and ultimately overpowered Gaston completely, but chose to show profound mercy, refusing to kill his defeated, cowardly rival, demonstrating the ultimate act of newly acquired, selfless kindness. The beast turned away to embrace Belle. The evil Gaston stabbed him cruelly and unexpectedly in the back with a hidden dagger, and the mortally wounded beast collapsed and fell onto the cold, snowy stone floor. Belle rushed tearfully to the dying beast, crying hysterically and desperately pleading with him to stay alive, confessing tearfully, "I love you, my dear beast. I truly love you with all my heart." Just as the final, sad, tiny rose petal gracefully detached itself from the stem and softly floated down to the cold floor, Belle's tearful, true, heartfelt confession miraculously broke the powerful, binding dark curse. In a blinding, majestic flash of golden, overwhelming light and swirling, warm magic, the hideous beast's furry form instantly dissolved, and he transformed back into the handsome, kind, and noble prince he was meant to be all along. The enchantments on the castle were also broken. The servants returned to their overjoyed human forms, and the loving prince and beautiful Belle were soon married, ruling the kingdom with profound kindness and living gloriously and happily ever after.